Welcome to WikiPodcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're diving deep into something we all experience and, well, probably all strive for. Joy. It's that feeling, that sort of lightness, maybe, that spark that really makes life feel worth living.
Absolutely. A fundamental part of being human.
We've gathered some really fascinating insights. We're looking at the Wikipedia entry on joy and also some excerpts from The Pursuit of Joy.
Yeah, it gives us a good mix, some psychological angles, some philosophical ones, too.
Exactly. And our mission really is to try and understand what joy actually is, at its core. How's it different from feelings like happiness? Where does it come from?
And why it matters, why it's so vital for you, for everyone.
So first off, this idea that joy isn't just like another word for happiness or pleasure, that seems key.
It really is. And C.S. Lewis, he was quite specific about this. He almost treated joy as a technical term.
Technical term. Okay.
Yeah. He even wondered, I sometimes wonder whether all pleasures are not substitutes for joy. That tells you something, right? He saw it as deeper.
Definitely sounds like it. So what was the big difference for him?
Well, a crucial point was about control. He said pleasure is often something we can chase, something we can find. It's often in our power.
Okay.
But joy. He felt joy is never in our power. It arrives, it happens to you almost. But, and this is important, he believed anyone who's truly tasted it wouldn't trade it for all the pleasures in the world.
Wow. That's a strong statement.
Wow.
So it's uncontrollable, but incredibly valuable.
Precisely. And Michaela Summa, she offers another way to think about this distinction, maybe more process-oriented.
How so?
She suggests joy often accompanies the process through and through. Think about maybe learning an instrument.
Right.
The joy isn't just hitting the final note perfectly. That might be happiness, but it's in the engagement, the practice, the whole journey.
Ah, I see. So happiness is more tied to the achievement, the end point.
Often, yeah. That's how Summa frames it. And she also points out joy is very much rooted in the present moment, right now.
Where's happiness?
Happiness can involve looking back, sort of evaluating a period of your life or your life overall. It has a broader, more evaluative feel sometimes.
That makes a lot of sense. The joy in the moment versus happiness about a moment or a time.
Exactly.
So shifting gears a bit towards psychology, where does this feeling actually come from? What are the sources?
Well, Ingrid Fittel-Lee has done some really interesting work here. Her book, Joyful, and her TED Talk, too, they explore this idea that joy isn't just some, abstract thing.
Yeah.
It can be found in tangible, everyday things, ordinary stuff. She admits it can feel elusive, maybe mysterious sometimes.
Yeah, I can feel that way.
But she argues it comes from within us, but it's often triggered by the world around us, and it's actually everywhere, if you look.
Okay. And she connects it to something quite primal.
She does. She says, joy is connected to our fundamental instinct of survival, which is a powerful idea.
It really is.
And she also emphasizes that it's often about the small things. Her quote is great. Each moment of joy is small, but over time they add up to the sum of their parts.
So it's not waiting for the huge moments, but appreciating the little lifts.
Precisely. Accumulating those small sparks.
What kind of things trigger these sparks? What are the common sources people point to?
Well, a few things pop up regularly in research. Things like deep engagement, getting lost in an activity, flow state, basically.
Right, losing track of time.
Exactly. Also that feeling of self-connection, feeling aligned with who you are, your values, that's a big one. And maybe simplest of all, just being present. Really being in the moment, appreciating what's happening right now.
It seems so straightforward yet often hard to do.
It is. But that's where a lot of joy seems to reside.
Now, it's interesting. You hear joy used all the time, but you mentioned it's maybe less studied in certain fields,
Right.
like affect theory.
Yeah, affect theory, which is basically the study of feelings, emotions, how they move us. It seems to discuss joy maybe less directly than, say, anger or fear.
Why do you think that is?
Susanna Pessanen offers a thought. Maybe excitement and joy are just so fundamental to building our personalities, our connections, that they're almost assumed. Part of the background fabric.
Interesting.
She looks at how these feelings, especially online, help shape our interests, build those webs of connection.
And then there's Sarah Ahmed, connecting joy to actual objects, happy objects.
Yes. It's a really cool concept. She talks about stickiness, the idea that joy and happiness aren't just passive feelings we receive.
Okay.
They're more like doing emotions. They create a connection and intimacy between us and things.
So the object itself isn't happy, but it sticks to happiness, or happiness sticks to it.
Kind of. She says, happiness thus puts us into intimate contact with things. You can be affected positively just by encountering something, even if you're not consciously thinking, oh, that thing makes me happy.
So just seeing something joyful can spark happiness automatically.
That's the idea. It creates an immediate, effective response.
This all points to joy being more than just, feeling good. It seems to have a real impact.
Oh, absolutely. The link between experiencing joy and better health and well-being is pretty well established.
In what ways?
Well, positive psychological changes, for one. It boosts your mood, contributes to overall life satisfaction, better mental health, basically.
And physical.
There's evidence for that, too, though the pathways are complex, less stress, perhaps. And interestingly, there seems to be a bit of a natural predisposition for some people.
Really? Like it's hereditary?
Yeah, there's research suggesting a genetic component to how easily or often someone might experience joy.
Huh. But even if you're not naturally bubbly, can you cultivate it? Can you increase it?
Definitely. That's the hopeful part. Healthy habits play a huge role.
Like what?
Simple things, really. Sharing food with people you care about, physical activity, getting your body moving.
Exercise, yeah.
Expressing yourself, writing, art, music, whatever works for you. And that self-connection piece we mentioned earlier, tuning in.
So it's actionable. We can build more joy into our lives.
We absolutely can. It takes intention, maybe, but it's possible.
Now, something else mentioned in the sources is the concept of queer joy. Tell us about that.
Yes, and it's such an important lens. Queer joy actively pushes back against this narrative that the LGBTQIA+ experience is only about struggle, pain, or trauma.
Right. Challenging that single story.
Exactly. It highlights the resilience, the immense creativity, and the joy that exists within these communities, often in defiance of hardship.
Where do we see examples of this?
Oh, lots of places. Think about popular media shows like Queer Eye or RuPaul's Drag Race, their celebrations, or films like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, just vibrant, life-affirming stuff.
And it goes beyond media, right? Into art and culture.
For sure. Think about Baz Luhrmann's visual style, often very maximalist, celebratory, or just the rainbow flag itself, a global symbol of joy and pride. Designers like Jean-Paul Gaultier have celebrated queer aesthetics for decades. And events like Andrew Logan's alternative Miss World pageant talk about an explosion of creative joy.
I've heard of that, featuring artists like Lee Bowery.
And Grayson Perry, yeah, truly unique. And it continues today. People like Fritha Lewin with her tatasses, these intricate bead graphics, or the queer tartan register, finding ways to express queer joy in new forms.
Sounds like a lot of it involves reclaiming or reinterpreting things.
That's a huge part of it. Taking traditions that might have excluded queer people, like debutante balls or certain social rituals, and creating joyful, powerful reinterpretations like ballroom culture or drag culture, creating spaces of belonging and celebration.
It really shows joy as a collective force, something shared and expressed, even against the odds.
Beautifully put, it's resistance and celebration rolled into one.
So bringing it back to that excerpt from The Pursuit of Joy, it sounds like it reinforces this idea joy isn't just fleeting.
No, exactly. It calls joy a spark that reminds us we're alive. Deep stuff. And it echoes what we've been saying, emphasizing connection, creativity, presence as key pathways to it. It really hammers home how vital joy is and that we can nurture it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? About what those sparks are in your own life.
It really does. Maybe the main thing is to reflect on that. What genuinely sparks joy for you? And maybe how can you consciously make a bit more room for those things?
Yeah, considering all these different angles, the process, the present moment, the small things, the connections.
Exactly. How can you invite more of that lightness in, knowing what we now know?
Thanks for listening. Write us in the comments your opinion on the episode and what other topics you would like us to talk about. Subscribe to the channel to help more listeners reach our episodes. Thank you and have an amazing day.